Welcome to Weapon Shumasa. Today we have as a guest Awni Farhat. Awni was born and raised in the Gaza Strip in Palestine. He worked with the Palestinian Center for Democracy and Conflict Resolution as a project coordinator. For 2 years, he was also the products and endorsements coordinator of an international freedom flotilla project, Gaza's Ark. He then left Gaza in the middle of an ongoing blockade that Israel and Egypt are imposing onto the region for more than 10 years, and he lives now in the Netherlands, where he got his master's degree in human rights and conflict studies. I've interviewed Awni at the Al Auda boat, meaning the return, while the Freedom Flotilla was in Cascais, Lisbon, in June. Freedom Flotilla is an international campaign to break the Israeli blockade of Gaza, sailing on boats. The interview was recorded in June. Maybe if you could start introducing yourself. I'm really interested in where were you born and yeah.
So first of all, my name is Awni Farhat. I'm a Palestinian from the Gaza Strip. I was born there, I was raised there. I spent the first 2 decades and half in this place. So all my identities, all my first knowledge and understanding of the word and the power structure started from this place. Even though this place was limited with its border, with its boundaries, with its occupation and the blockade, I always had the feeling that I want to know more. I want to cross these boundaries and these man-made illegal and inhuman blockade. So I started working with different international organizations, starting from UNRWA with Save Children, with BCDHR, it's a Palestinian Center for Human Rights and Conflict Resolution. I also worked with the Freedom Flotilla in the Gaza Strip.
While you were living there?
We worked on a project, it's called the Gaza's Ark project. We rebuilt a boat similar to this one. And this one is Al Auda. Now, it's in Arabic, it means the return. And we're gonna go back to this because the name has its, we choose the name for a purpose. But yeah, so I worked there. I was involved with different activities and different human rights work, and then I was lucky to leave the Gaza Strip in 2015.
Maybe before we go there, yeah. You were born in a refugee camp there, right?
Yeah.
Can you explain what that means?
A refugee camp, like when someone hears a refugee camp, the idea that comes to the audience, they think it's a camp with the tents and a place where people living in refugee camp, which is not true. Now the refugee camp converted or transformed to a big city, large city. And I'm not actually from, I was born in Jabalia camp, but I'm originally from Simsim. It's a village. Now it's under the Israeli control. So I am the 3rd generation of the Palestinian refugee who were expelled in 1948. So being a refugee, being a Palestinian refugee living in the Gaza Strip, growing in this place where it's embedded into or full with crisis and so many problems. So you just live in a way that you see things in a different way. You look at the world in different lens. And yeah.
Your family is not from Gaza.
What do you mean?
You said your family is from a city that is now occupied by Israel.
Yeah. So
what did Nakba mean for your family?
So the Nakba is, if we go back to the root causes of this injustice or of the outcome of the current situation, we have to go back to the Nakba, which is the catastrophe that happened against the Palestinians in 1948. 70,000 Palestinians from Palestine, they were expelled. They were forcibly expelled from their villages, from cities, from
More than 500 villages were leveled.
more than 500 villages were destroyed, and tens of people they were killed, massacred. And since the Zionism movement started, and huge Jewish migration started to move into Palestine.
And do you still live in Gaza right now?
My family.
Yeah.
My family. Yeah.
You and your family.
No, I moved out from the Gaza Strip in 2015. I lived in Istanbul for a year, and then I moved to Netherlands. I did my master in The Hague. I did my master in human rights and conflict studies, and I finished a few months ago. And now it's time to do something for my place, and this is the least we can do by participating in such projects and being the voice of the Palestinians. Yeah.
And living Gaza is not really an easy task, right? The blockade that Israel and also Egypt has been enforcing onto Gaza doesn't really permit people to leave unless they have a permit from one of those countries.
Yeah,
how was your route?
Yeah.
So
if I go back to 2015, when I wanted to leave the Gaza Strip for education, I didn't want to leave just for the case of leaving. I always had the passionate that I want to study abroad. I want to educate myself. I want to learn the root causes of this injustice and inequality, and to look at the bigger picture. So I had offers from different schools and from different universities, and I applied to get the UK visa, but the UK immigration office refused my visa application.
Why?
Because they considered me as a non-genuine student, which means a not real student. Then I applied to get a visa to Turkey. I got it, and then I moved to Turkey. I started working with a community center or NGO working with Syrian refugees for more than 7 months. And during that time, I was applying for schools again. I got an offer from a university in the Netherlands. I moved in September 2016. Yeah, but there's a long frustrating journey of getting out of this place. It's not easy. It's not like here. If you have time, if you have money, you can easily move from one place to another.
Like buy a ticket, buy a plane ticket.
By buying a flight or train ticket. Like there, even though if you have the visa, if you have the money, if you have the time, which is too complicated to have, even if you have all these things, you also need to go through a long journey of frustration and depression of waiting, because the border most of the time is closed, and it just opens unexpectedly, and there's no specific times for the border, for opening the border. So if you, like in 2015, I remember my number was 11,740, and it took me more than 7 months of trying and going to the border and come back home, saying goodbye to my mom and dad more than 15 times. So it's exhausting, so much. But if you have this resilience and you keep trying, don't give up, then you manage. But the curse that once you are out, you can't get back again, because you have to go through the same process of frustration. So it's like a place where you get stuck, and if you're out, you're out, and if you want to go back, you have to wait and wait again. And if you are in, and then you're stuck, and then if you want to go out, it takes you another year. So it feels like it's a maze, and a maze full of humans, and a maze full of problems, and a maze full of injustice. Yeah.
Have you ever came back to Gaza?
No, it's been 3 years now. I want to go back. I want to go back and see my family, and just be a normal citizen. Like, go back for a whole day, for 2 weeks, see my family, see my nephews, nieces, my brother, my sister, my mom, my dad. But it's a bit tricky, because if you want to go back, you have to leave everything behind, and everything you have built here, your education, your friends, your future, and you have to compromise about so many things. But at the same time, you are compromising about your family, so you feel you are hanging in between two fires, and which is not fair. But this doesn't stop us from fighting. But I am overcoming this feeling of helplessness, of being stuck by being the voice of the Palestinians, by working for my people, for being a good representative of Palestinians, standing up for their rights, for their human rights, for social justice, for fighting for them in a way that could bring a change.
Have you crossed Egypt or
Yeah.
Israel?
From Egypt.
And can you describe the route? How many checkpoints have you had to pass?
I'm really ashamed to say that the Egyptians are, like, now the current regime in Egypt is bound to the Israeli policies, and they are part of this problem. And this is connected to other political discourses in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. And but my personal story, that I had really difficult time going through Egypt, or traveling from Rafah crossing to Cairo airport, as we were deported inhumanly from Rafah crossing to Cairo, and we were followed by an army jeep in the back, an army jeep in the front, and we were locked in a really small hole for like 1 day and 1 night. And
how many people?
Like more than 200. Yeah. And I remember I was sleeping at the metal fence for more than like 35 minutes, and this was like I was awake for 3 days. And then all of a sudden someone came and woke me up and told me, oh, we have to go. And then we were asked to follow an Egyptian officer to go and book our flights at the same time. So because you can't book your flight because you don't know if you're gonna make it out Rafah crossing or not. So
can you explain what Rafah crossing
crossing
means?
is the main gate between, or actually it's the only border or the only gate that you can get out from the Gaza Strip, as we don't have facilities which means seaboard, airport that we can use to travel. So we use the Egyptian facilities, we use the Egyptian airport, and you can't get through this crossing until you have a permit, until you have a visa in your passport, until you have a reason to use the Egyptian facilities. And once you have all these things, you can cross, and but you are not allowed to enter Egyptian cities, or to go to Cairo, or to go to other places. You are locked in the airport till you have your flight. So we booked a flight, and we were following you. You are not a normal traveler. you have to follow specific officer, and then they will take you to the airplane, and you don't feel like you are free. You are obliged to follow the orders. And I remember something that I will never forget, when I was looking to the other people and looking at us, and we were like walking in a line like prisoners, like different people, and why they're treating us like this. And all these questions that came to my mind. And it was, of course, the first time that I was out and experiencing things in a different way for the first time. Was a bit frustrating. Yeah.
So you left Gaza in 2015, which means that you've been there in 2014, where the what Israel calls the Operation Protective Edge massacred more than 2,200 Palestinians, 500 of which children. What do you remember from that?
What I remember of that, actually, I have the. As we, I think all of us, we have this survival mechanism. So I feel like our brains, they filter all these memories. But of course, I remember so many things, but I'm trying not to get stuck there. I'm trying to use this experience as a way of getting something out of it. Not to be negative, not to be... not to get stuck in this darkness. So for so many people, they like these experiences influence them and make them pessimistic, make them looking at the world in a different way. But for me, it made me more positive. It made me more faithful, made me more believer, and made me more passionate to bring a change. But going back to your question, in 2014, I was working with a Swedish TV as a translator. So I was most of the time on the field. So like from one place to another, translating my life to bring and deliver the message of what's happening there. So I wasn't home, even though my family were so worried about me and were trying to stop me from doing this. But I was working with journalists and with different media agencies.
You called it in 2014 in a blog post on your website. You called it Nakba 2014.
Oh, did I? I didn't remember. But it's true because, okay, I think this is what happened in Shijaiya. Like when I saw people, they were like fleeing, and they're like thousands of people. They were leaving their homes and their places and running away from death, running away from bombs and attacks. In Shijaiya, it's the eastern side of the Gaza city. It's a huge neighborhood, and it was 90% was totally destroyed, and tens of people that were killed, and they were attacked, and they were like under the rubbles. What do you call? What do you call them when the house goes down and the whole thing, just like people, they get stuck there. Some of them
People
alive,
got stuck,
some
like
of them dead. So that's why I called it Nakba 48, because it's the same image goes back to my mind that all the time my grandfather and my grandmother told me about. They were carrying the necessary things, carrying their kids, carrying their beloved ones, and just running away with their life. And this will happen in 1948 when the Zionists, they were committing genocide and massacres against Palestinians. And this will happen again in 2014, and it's still happening at the time we're speaking. and yeah.
So in 2018, maybe a month and a half ago, maybe 2 months, the Great Return March started on the 13th of March, where thousands of people run to the fence that Israel calls border between Gaza and Israel, but it's actually a fence. And they were killed by the hundreds. So more than 100 people were killed in the biggest massacre probably since 2014. Avigdor Lieberman, the Minister of Defense of Israel, said there's no innocent people in Gaza.
I mean, there's nothing. I mean, there's nothing we expect from. What is he? The education minister?
Defense minister.
Defense minister. Also, I think the education minister says something similar. But I mean, there's. I mean, what to comment about a radical Zionist, like blinded about humanity, and he just only sees himself as a superior, and we are or they look at us as non-humans, and this is the root causes of this injustice, the dehumanization of the Palestinian population. They don't look at them as humans, and they look at them as subhumans. And when you put yourself in a different place and you disvalue or dehumanize the other. So the Great March of Return, why it's the Great March of Return? The return, why they call it the return? This spring, and this is the name of the boat or one of our boats, the return, which is the return of the Palestinian refugees to their land, to Palestine, and this goes to its context, to 70 years of colonization, 70 years of occupation, and the root causes of this is the Nakba, and
do you think al-Nakba al-Mustamira, that the Nakba is ongoing?
Yeah, it is, because if you look at the West Bank, the land grabbing is continuing, the squeezing of the Palestinian land is still continuing, the occupation is still ongoing, so and it's getting worse and getting worse. So of course it's a continuation of the Nakba, and sadly this is the reality. And giving the fact that nowadays really they have the power and they have the support from the international community, especially the United States.
Who left the Human Rights Council of the United Nations just this week.
I'm not surprised. I'm looking at the U.S. administration, and they clearly support the Israeli, and it's the United States babies in the Middle East, and they need to keep this as their I don't know, like something they have on this side of the world. So it's like one of the states of the United States.
And you're going now in the boat. Are you expecting to reach Gaza, or?
Yeah, for now, the names of the people who are going from the last leg to the Gaza Strip are not public yet. So, like for me, participating in doing the events and activities, talking to the people and interacting with the local groups and delivering the message is much, much more important. And raising the voice of the voiceless, to raise the voice of the Palestinians who are locked in the Gaza Strip and no one hears about. as you said before, here in Portugal, no one really knows about what's happening on the other side of the world, and we need to bring this message up, and we need to work hard on bringing a change on the mindset and of the people who live here, because these people, they are the one who put politicians, and the politicians who make decisions, and these politicians who are running the world now, sadly, and this of course affect us as a Palestinians.
Would you include the Palestinian Authority in there?
Include? Yeah, there's a Palestinian Authority. I have so many. I mean, the Palestinian Authority it's authority under occupation, and they don't have so much to do, and it's actually an occupied authority, so they don't have any sovereignty, or they don't have any control of Palestine or the occupied Palestinian territories, given the fact that the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, they are politically and geographically separated, which makes more difficult for us to be a united body that we can go forward.
Shukran.
خلاص?
Fumaça is produced by Bernardo Afonso, Frederico Raposo, Maria Almeida, Pedro Miguel Santos, Pedro Zuzarte, Sofia Rocha, Tomás Pereira, Tomás Pinho, and by me, Ricardo Esteves Ribeiro. Visit fumaca.pt for new episodes and subscribe to our newsletter and wherever you get your podcasts. Até já!